puny god.
The Marvel Cinematic Universe is massive. Marvel shows have been entertaining us since the 70s. Phase 4 is only applicable from WandaVision onwards. The shows we've been exposed to in Phase 4 are WandaVision, Loki, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. If you watch these shows, you'll know how grand they are in their scope. That scope is covered by a lot of CGI. In fact, these shows would be basically impossible without CGI. We wanted to show you exactly how much CGI was used in making these fantastic shows. We hope you enjoy the video. But before we get into the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel with notifications on, so you don't miss any of the new videos we post. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier used a CGI Captain America shield for the bloody John Walker scene. One of the most striking images in the Disney Plus series, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, if not the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, happened at the end of the 4th episode. The whole world is watching. Having just brutally beaten a flag smasher to death because he incorrectly believed the man had killed Lamar Hoskins, John Walker stood holding the bloody Captain America shield as people nearby recorded what he'd done. The blood was still dripping from the shield when Walker turned off against Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes in the following episode. Truth, but it turns out that the weapon and its tainted appearance during those moments were completely CGI. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier VFX supervisor Eric Levin said, "One of the most impressive shots I thought was at the very end when Sam's holding up the shield after the fight and wiping the blood away. That's a CG shield with CG blood on it, due to the fact that 1, it was difficult for people to decide on the day what the blood was going to look like. People were frankly hesitant to put blood on the real shield because we'd never done that before. This shield is always pristine, but when they're fighting with a rubber shield. They can't fight with a real shield, so the rubber shields typically don't look 100%. They flex, so that needs to be replaced. People don't realize that shields are usually computer generated." WandaVision sitting on the couch admiring their rings. Wanda and Vision admired their wedding rings while sitting on the couch towards the end of the 1st episode. Dots were placed on Bettany's face and used to track his movements for the CGI rendering later. This allowed the WandaVision crew to add the details of Vision's body via CGI. Interestingly, on Assembled, Jen Underdahl, the vice president of visual effects, said that in the 50s and 60s, actors would wear blue lipstick so that their lips would appear red on camera. The same approach was used when finding the right shades of blue for Bettany, which was later digitally changed. Tom Hiddleston as Captain America. In a scene from Thor: The Dark World, they filmed a scene of Tom doing an impression of Captain America. The only reason they did this was because Tom really wanted to wear the costume. Chris Evans later actually mimicked the scene exactly and replaced it in the final product. So Evans did an impression of Tom doing an impression of Evans as Captain America. Tom later said he thought it was brilliantly done. Vision dips Wanda in a dance scene from the opening scene. Vision dipped Wanda while dancing with her in the opening credits of the season premiere. The scene was shot black and white. In keeping with the technology of the 50s and 60s, the first 2 episodes of WandaVision were filmed in black and white, rather than color. Award-winning duo Robert Lopez and Kristen Anderson Lopez created every song for the opening credits of the decade-specific episode. Bettany was painted blue because that color translated better in grayscale than a signature maroon color. The actor was then fully transformed into the synthezoid using VFX that added details like the metal parts on his face. The scene where Hulk smashes Loki. For this scene, Tom had a wire attached to his ankle and a mat on the floor to catch him. 3 crew members held onto the wire and yanked hard at the right moment. Tom was pulled out of frame and onto the mat after Hulk hit him. Tom said it was an experience he will not forget in a hurry. The rest of the scene where Hulk repeatedly smashes Loki against the floor was done by the special effects department to create an iconic fight scene, or should we call it a being beaten up scene. Wanda in the kitchen with food flying around her. In a scene where Wanda had to hastily prepare supper, her powers resulted in the food, utensils, and kitchen appliances floating around her. Wires were used to give the impression that Wanda's magic was at play. Such techniques were used on the set of Bewitched, one of the classic sitcoms that served as inspiration for the show. On Assembled, director Max Shackman said that it was important to them to be authentic to the eras, which is why they used older special effects for these types of scenes. Strange, but true. Thor and Loki escape from Asgard. In this scene where the duo are in a spaceship escaping from Asgard, they were really on a set with no CGI and only rudimentary structural objects about. The CGI made it look like they were on an actual spaceship. In the scene, Thor shoves Loki out of the open door. In reality, Hemsworth only gave Tom a light shove, and then Tom had to throw himself out of the open door and land on a mat below. Wanda exiting the Hex and confronting Sword. In this scene, Wanda exited the Hex with a Sword drone in her hand and confronted them. Wanda was angry with Tyler Hayward after he ordered his agents to shoot her with an armed drone that infiltrated her Hex. Wanda's Hex was created using visual effects. In behind-the-scenes footage, Olsen was seen standing in an empty field alone with plenty of open space. On Assembled, Tara DeMarco, a visual effects supervisor, said that the crew's goal was for Wanda's Hex to emulate the language of television. That is why the barrier was reminiscent of TV static. Loki Dark World fades out. In the Dark World, Thor and Loki work together again. Using Loki's illusion magic, Loki and Thor fooled McKelliff into believing that Loki had betrayed Thor. The scene went on as far as to show Loki cut off Thor's hand and give up Jane Foster. The scene shows Loki literally kicking Thor while he is on the ground. The force of the kick sends Thor rolling. On set, Hemsworth had wires attached to him. Tom kicked at Chris but did not connect, and the actor who plays Thor was ripped out of the scene with wires. Darcy and Vision escaped the circus. In this scene, Darcy had been awakened by Vision and was trying to reach Wanda. They escaped the circus by stealing a funnel cake truck and driving away. Bettany's entire face was painted maroon once WandaVision began filming in color. As you can see in the visuals, facial elements like the Mind Stone weren't originally part of his look when filming. It was added later. Loki's chains in the Avenger. In the Avengers, the chains Tom had on were CGI made, unlike those he had on in Thor: The Dark World. He was walking normally and the special effects team put the chains and muzzle in later. Without the special effects, Tom was simply walking next to Thor. Tom did very well in that he even limited the movement of his mouth and jaw as if he was in a muzzle. Agatha physically controls Wanda in her basement. In this scene, Agatha got hold of Wanda and she was seen floating helplessly in the air in the basement. Agatha, played by Kathryn Hahn, had tied up Wanda in the air using her dark magic. Olsen was attached to a harness while filming the scene. In reality, the system Olsen was attached to moved forward and back to achieve that effect. Agatha's purple-hued magic was added in using visual effects. Long distance call. The interaction between Loki and the other, who was working for Thanos, was a more complete conversation than in the movie. In reality, a lot of the conversation was cut out, but that entire conversation was filmed before a blue screen. The other's look was achieved with practical effects. Agatha controls Wanda's kids with magic leashes. In this scene, Agatha was floating in the air and held Wanda's twins hostage with purple hue leashes. Han was suspended in the air using wires. As seen on Assembled, a fan was placed off camera and directed at Han so her hair could dramatically move as she levitated. All wires connected to Han and the actors playing the twins were digitally removed. Loki's helmet. Loki's helmet was a bit complicated to put on. There was a top part and a bottom part, which snapped together on his head, fitting very snugly. Apparently, the helmet drove Tom mad. He felt claustrophobic, uncomfortable, and very hot in it. He channeled that energy into his performance, so all the anger you see is actually him not liking his helmet. Because the helmet is such an uncomfortable thing to wear, we did not see a lot of it in the Avengers. It would only return in Thor Ragnarok again. This time, however, the helmet had a minimalist redesign. This is why the helmet changed. The actor could not stand wearing it. Vision intervenes to save Wanda from White Vision. After Wanda was almost killed by White Vision, Bettany saved the day and floated mid-air as he and Wanda conversed. Wanda assured Vision that she could fix the mess she created within her Hex. A multitude of wires were attached to Bettany so he could look as though he was flying. There was also a blue screen behind him, which allowed the crew to digitally add in the rest of the neighborhood's block. This is it for today's video. We hope you enjoyed it. What do you think about the special effects and Marvel shows in general? Feel free to leave a comment below. Thank you for watching the video. We would love to have you back again. Until you do return, take care of yourselves.